Sports commentator Stephen A. Smith weighed in on the current state of the presidential race, suggesting that while former President Trump speaks a lot of folks' language, he believes Vice President Harris will win in November. Asked by CNN's Chris Wallace why the former president is seemingly doing well with young black voters, particularly men, Smith pointed to trust issues may have with lawmakers. I think that it's a combination of the disgust and the absence of trust that an abundance of people, not just black males, but an abundance of people in America have with Capitol Hill, Smith said in an interview with Who's Talking to Chris Wallace. Listen, when it comes to Donald Trump, he speaks a lot of folks' language, he continued. They don't care as much about the message. They don't care about how he's delivering the message because he delivers it in a way that they want to deliver it to Capitol Hill. Still, he mentioned that the GOP nominee's blunt delivery and rhetoric could be a deterrent for moderate undecided voters, leaving room for Harris to swoop in and claim those ballots. I really do think she's going to win this election because I think that when you take away the fringes, folks on the fringe, on the extreme right and left, and you get to the center, I think ultimately people are going to look at her, regardless of what they're saying about her. They're going to look at her and say, "You can work with her," he said. Smith later added that he didn't think any people wanted to relive what happened after the 2020 election, likely referencing to Trump's efforts to remain in power. The way the streets in America was when he departed from office in 2020, I don't think a lot of people are going to want to relive that, the commentator told Wallace. And I think by that virtue is what is going to propel her to the presidency. I always like Smith's commentary because I think of any of these sports commentators that get involved in talking about this stuff, he delivers it in a way I can get behind. And he's correct that there is an absence of trust that people have in general with lawmakers. I mean, we've seen the repetition of Congress having what 12% approval ratings. Just no one likes the job they do, which makes all the more insane that most members of Congress get reelected, but I digress. Where he mentions that Trump has a way of delivery. I've said Trump, one of the things I will always give him credit for is the ability to speak to people and appear likable, charismatic. And this is something that is part of the reason why a lot of us believe 2024 is the end for Republicans because presuming that Trump does not run again in 2028, they really do not have anyone else who can pull off the same mirage, right? The whole likability factor and just, manner of speaking, while at the same time, being for the rest of the billionaires and rich people. Now, where he mentions that this will dissuade, I don't, I would actually say that if undecided voters or independents are to be turned off by anything, it's probably going to be the criminal charges. They're eating the dogs. What was the other one? um, I mean, hell, January 6th. We could bring that back up because that's part of what he also mentions as something that people are trying to avoid. But I agree with him that right now the way things stand, and I'm not pretending that I have a firm position on this. This is something that could change. Polling is always switching and shifting depending on people's moods and how many months or weeks are left before the election. But as things currently stand, as we enter the second to last full month before the election, I think Harris is going to win. I think it's going to be a close race that gets decided in the usual 6 or 7 swing states, and that she is doing very well and probably going to carve out the path. Now, again, Trump can still come back. Low voter turnout can be a factor. People being disenfranchised over Gaza can be an issue, and that's something that I wish Smith had brought up because people do have an abundant a lack of trust in her for not appearing to be any different from Trump or Biden on the issue of Israel, which is going to be a very significant part of the electorate in Michigan. But these are all things that just factor into why I say this isn't a sure thing for me, and I don't want to get so comfortable with the idea that someone's going to win an election where there's polling where like for example, when Trump was running in the primary, I said there's no way in hell he doesn't win this primary, especially when the state started voting, because we saw polls where he was 10, 20, 30 points ahead of his opponents. With the Harris Trump polls in most states that actually, and I hate saying it this way, that the states that actually matter, um, they're in single digits of each other. Anytime you have a margin that small, anything can happen. I mean, I get that's why they're called swing states, but that's why I said it is still too early to have a definitive answer on who's going to win this.